The ladies first. Rebecca Harms, you were quite harsh yesterday at the opening of the parliament when you attacked the president of the parliament, Martin Schulz, even coming from your country, Germany, for his approach when it came to the election, or not election, referendum in Greece.
Yes,
why were you that harsh?
On the one hand, I agreed before the weekend with Martin Schulz that the referendum in Greece is not only a Greek issue, because the outcome, what we said before, we did not know, but anyway would impact not only Greece, but all the countries, at least of the Eurozone. So therefore, I never objected the idea that also the president of the parliament says something on the referendum. I even could understand that he was campaigning for the yes. But what I really found beyond his role as president of the European Parliament, that he dared to develop scenarios for Greece after the referendum, showing into a direction that Greece has to change government, that Greece needs a technical government, that the voters are not up to what they have to vote about, etc. I found it irresponsible and counterproductive, not only in the Greek context, but also in the European context. And so I think Martin Schulz has his remits, so he is quite successful in profiling the European Parliament as one of the institutions. He is meanwhile seen as the fifth president in the European institutions among the other presidents. But he should never forget that a president of the European Parliament has to reflect always that he represents the majority of the European Parliament, and not only the majority, but the whole of the European Parliament.
Morten Messerschmidt?
Well, actually, I do agree with what Ms. Harms said here, that I think that Schulz, or any president of whatever institution, needs to act in a more neutral or embracing way, so that he can't be accused of having taken a stand. That being said, though, I think on the matter what Schulz said, it is quite evident that the Greek people doesn't want to obey to the rules of being in the euro, and if that's the case, the only rational thing to do is to leave the common currency. Honestly, I represent a country not being within the euro, so basically I have no interest in this. But I think it's staggering to now have seen for 6 or 7 years such a big economy like the eurozone being focused on such a relatively small country. I mean, that's unheard of. Why would the German economy, French economy, Spanish economy, and so on be for so many years depending on an economy like the Greek one? Why not just make the inevitable split, which will come anyway?
And your reaction to that, Mrs. Harms?
So I think for the better of the European Union, especially now the Eurozone countries, Greece should stay in the Eurozone. They should keep the euro, but this is also for them a demanding process. I visited Greece very often, and I know that generations of politicians have not been able to create a functioning state based on functioning institutions, the taxation system, the social systems. We know it, meanwhile, they are not well organized, and especially they are socially unfair. You see it now, that the most poor people are suffering most in the crisis. In addition, the Greek situation worsened because of these austerity-oriented program. And we have to stop it. We have to go for better reforms, real reforms. And we have to decide that the debt situation must be sustainable for Greece. It's easy. It would be easy to do it if both sides now move. And so to the better or the worse, I think this would be for the better of everybody if they step out. It will be for the worse for everybody in Europe.
Your standpoint is that they should leave.
Oh, they will.
If whatever, who shall help them?
Well, we shall, indeed. I mean, we need to change the treaty so that you can leave the euro but stay within the EU.
But
let's just listen for a moment, because it's unsustainable to have a situation where you are forced to leave the entire EU just because you should never have joined the euro. What Rebecca Harms says about reforms in Greece are logical, seen from a German, I would even say a northern standpoint, but you can't Germanize the Greeks. I mean, the level of corruption, the way their taxation system works, the way their labor market works, the education system, all these things are not a chance, it's not a coincidence. It's because it's how Greece and the Greek economy has been working for centuries. And you can't reform that, especially not from Germany, especially not from Frankfurt, nor Brussels or Strasbourg. That needs to come from the Greek people themselves. And what you see now is the consequence of these reforms being pushed down above a population that doesn't feel to have been taken into consideration, haven't been asked. That has led to political radicalization with Syriza, an extreme left-wing party, Golden Dawn, an extreme right-wing party now on the rise. That has lead to economic catastrophic situation. So what you're suggesting might be in the textbook the right thing, but in the real world it doesn't work.
But Morten, you stated yourself that this has happened for years, not just in the time they have been members of the European Union. So why do the people have to suffer now? Why are we not going to try to help them in any ways, whether they are inside or outside?
It's very logical. I mean, if you have a currency, if you have an exchange rate which doesn't fit your economical policies, you will become ill. It's like having the wrong temperature in a human body. You will also be ill. And that's the problem with the Greek economy. The Greek production apparatus cannot go along with the German or the Finnish or the Luxembourgeois or the other northern European countries. Therefore, Greece needs to get out of the euro, not EU. They need to have access to the
devaluate.
Of course, they need to devaluate.
And then their debts are raising.
No, because the majority of the debt is nominated in Greek after Greek law, so they will follow the new currency. That's not a problem. You have to understand that. Oh well, I'm sorry. Those are the facts. The thing is that the debt is actually not the real problem for Greece. The debt is only the symptom of the problem, namely to have an overrated exchange rate.
That might be a part of the...
But so leaving the euro, going back to the drachma or a system with parallel currency will be for Greece so the worsening of the situation. Then they will see real catastrophe. They will see. So I have been very often in Greece since 5 years, so really very often.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, many Greeks are convinced that they have to develop their country into a country which functions very well for all the citizens.
I think
they
you're
know
right.
the problems. They know the problems of clientelism, of nepotism. They know the problems with corruption. They know that they have to reform taxation, etc. But so what we not mentioned as the Europeans, together with reasonable Greek citizens, we never achieved, we never managed to create an idea of reforms to the better. So a fair social system, fair pensions, fair taxation system.
But may I interrupt you here,
and this
Mrs.
has to be done.
All the support coming from EU, coming from the central bank, has been put into the bank system in Greece.
Yes.
It hasn't reached those who really are in need.
Yeah.
So how to avoid that further money from the European side is going to the banks and not to the poor? Can we surround, so to speak, the poor people and give them the money directly in some way?
So we always complained while visiting Greece and Athens again and again over the years that so we managed to help out the European banks engaged in Greece, so especially Germany and France we had to cover. Afterwards we stabilized the Greek banks, but then nothing happened. So the money was never given to those people who needed money.
How do
investment? So in this we have to push.
Yeah, but
we need an investment strategy. This is also the other issue. So what Greece really needs after years of more than recession, it's awful recession, it's deep, it's close to deflation. Yeah? So they really need an investment program, and I think even if we combine all the means from the cohesion funds, from EFSI, the Juncker plan, And ask private investments via the banks. Yeah? So it will work. It takes some time, but it can work.
How much time do you think the Greek people has? Because now they are still in the verge of revolution. I mean, socially, economically.
So there are some in the state of revolution, but believe me, there are many Greeks. They know that revolution is not something which continues, but so something has to happen.
May I take that point? Because some people have told me that the reason why there are no cuts in the military budget is because they fear a coup d'etat from the military side, perhaps in a more modern way than we experienced in the 70s, but still a kind of military regime. Why isn't there any cuts on the military budget, in your opinion?
I think it's, I mean, historical reasons.
There have been some cuts, but the last proposition was refused, and then the Greeks said we need more.
million euro.
I mean, this is not about the public spending.
This was a gift. It's public spending, and they have one of the highest
5%.
2.3% of
the main issue here is not about public spending.
It was because of the right-wing party ANEL. So they have also the security minister in the cabinet, and they insisted to have this high budget, and Syriza agreed because they have to comfort ANEL.
But shouldn't the EU put pressure there and get the money out?
But listen, what you don't get apparently is that it's not the debt. It's not the spending in Greece. It's not the macroeconomics as such which are the reason for the oncoming default of the Greek economy and the amount of debt they have. It's because they are lacking competitiveness due to an overrated exchange rate. So the reforms that you would pursue in order to reform the economy needs to improve the competitiveness. And how that is done now, after how many years trying to do this, now with such a level of debt, now with the realities as they are in collecting taxes, in corruption, and all these things, how that is done within a period of time which is getting smaller and smaller, I think nobody has the answer, and therefore the only, and that is the real catastrophe, political catastrophe of the situation. Therefore, the only response people like you, Ms. Harms, have is that it will be even worse if they left the euro, but it will not. The main reason why you and Schulz and others are against Greece leaving the euro is because you know it will work. Of course it works if you devaluate like Iceland did after the financial crisis and thereby get a balance between your monetary and economic policies. But you're afraid of that because the Spanish people, the French people, the Italians and so on, they will then see that it actually worked for Greece, and then that will dissolve the euro. Isn't that what you're really afraid of?
No, but so you know it, so it must not be discovered that I'm in favor of the euro. I think the euro was a good idea, but the euro, the common currency, can function only with deeper integration in fiscal policies. I'm very much in favor of this, and I can tell you that the most worrying outcome, among the most worrying outcomes of the referendum in Greece is that the readiness of citizens in Europe to support the deeper integration is getting weaker as before, and I think Greeks voted on something they never intended, because they should know that especially for their case we need the deeper integration, because without integration we will see those situations again and again.
But the thing is that there is a limit to how much you can humiliate a population, Rebecca. There is a limitation, and I think that the Greeks feel extremely humiliated through the reforms that they have been pushed through for the past 7 years.
I agree.
And now they're
but
fed
they
up.
asked for it themselves.
No, they didn't.
No,
they were never asked. They were never asked.
They accepted the politicians. They voted for politicians.
It's funny to argue against two people here. Should I have a friend as well? No, the politicians, which Rebecca Harms just before described as corrupt and inefficient, made the decision for them. They should never have joined. I even think in your heart you know that would be right. You can just not say it, and that's fair enough. The thing is here that we have this catch-22. On the one hand, you will never be able to push the reforms through which are necessary in order to make this federal Europe. because the people don't want it. On the other hand, the total abolishment of democracy still is too big a humiliation, especially for German people, I would imagine. But that is impossible, and therefore the euro will remain a catastrophe with so many different economies in it.
Morten, how do we persuade the Greeks to take out the gold reserves they have in billions, it's said, and use it for the benefit of the poor?
Well, I guess that Frau Mutti will manage to get the rest of the pennies out of the Greeks as well. That is sort of the line where you've been going. And then my fear is not about the economical concentration really and the economical default and things like that. We've seen that for many times economies going down. My real concern is the political impact this will have. I think we will see a race of more and more extreme parties in these. You had Front National in France. You have Syriza, Golden Dawn in Greece. You have Podemos in Spain.
Something?
Who? In Denmark? Who? No, tell me.
Nobody.
I would like that on television if you would like to say something.
No, so explain me the situation in Denmark.
The situation in Denmark is that for instance, my party, former party leader, was just elected Speaker of the House with the support by the Socialist group. So what is it that you're trying to say?
No, but also in Denmark
right.
there are anti-European voices.
Yeah, but that's not anti-European. Anti-Euro is not extreme. I think it would be quite dangerous.
So I would say what I see on the right side of this house, that there is a slippery slope, and you can see it in the composition of the different right-wing groups. Conservatives, very conservatives, right-wingers, right populists and extreme rights. So in a different composition you find them across several groups in this house.
Like you will on the left side.
On the left side, what I was really also very worried about is the tone of the Greek campaign. During the last week. I found it really too much a nationalistic rhetoric.
That is what happens if you pressure a country that greatly.
So we saw other countries, and this gives me hope. I was traveling across the Baltics for 1 week. We had the problems there, with deep economic crisis. And those people fighting for freedom, democracy and well-functioning states, they make it.
Yes.
And I think if they can do it, the Greeks can also do it. And I will not give up on the Greeks.
No.
I will not give up on the euro and not on Greece.
Well, you have to choose.
No.